As a lifelong game master of tabletop RPGs, there are few things more exciting than the promise of a high-quality, dungeon-delving co-op action game taking place in the iconic Forgotten Realms. After all, it's hard to beat the storytelling, world-building, or high-fantasy badassery of the original D20 rolling pastime that is Dungeons & Dragons. But in all my years, I've seldom seen anyone roll a critical failure quite like Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, which manages to take all that potential and turn it into a joyless labor. This thing is mind-numbingly repetitive, deeply lacking in storytelling, and absolutely overflowing with bugs. And that just breaks this nerd's heart more than a group of PCs deciding to split the party. Dark Alliance is a by-the-numbers, 4-player co-op action brawler that's all about hacking, slashing, and blasting your way through all manner of beasts and monsters in typical dungeon-delving fashion. That's about as deep as it ever gets. Once you've played for 10 minutes, you've beheld pretty much everything Dark Alliance has to offer, something I can confirm after spending a dozen hours getting to the credits of an adventure that got stale during the second level, and then a dozen more trudging through a painful solo run. The fact that the story's premise is a bare-bones bounty hunting checklist where you kill the generically evil guys on your naughty list certainly doesn't help to draw one in. Sure, it's awesome that some of the most iconic and well-known D&D characters like Driss Duerden the Dark Elf take center stage as playable characters for Dark Alliance, but it's deflating that they aren't used well at all. You just kill your targets and then call it a day and go home. That's a pretty poor use of the Forgotten Realms' decade-long history of world building. Even worse, the whole hack-and-slash campaign is a monotonous slog in every sense. Mindless, repetitive combat and exploration dominate the time as you loot gold, earn samey new gear, and grind for XP to unlock abilities that don't do much to change up the routine. In fact, there aren't any surprises or reinventions of the gameplay along the way. If you've played one level, you've played them all. You fight only a handful of enemy types that appear again and again over the course of 21 levels. There are optional objectives, but they're laughably shallow, such as having you destroy certain items throughout the level or hunting for a named enemy. Just to make the trek more irritating, there are a small set of mundane puzzles and environmental hazards that are reused constantly. I can't believe how often it makes you do these. There's one area I can give Dark Alliance some praise, and that's the design of the levels themselves, which shine as one of the true highlights. Most areas have a unique and beautiful appearance with plenty of alternate paths to explore or hidden areas with treasure chests and puzzles to find. Likewise, enemies and allies alike are detailed, otherworldly, and have tons of combat animations that make for some satisfying moments. Music and sound effects are also high quality and perfectly fit the aesthetic of the Forgotten Realms, and voice acting across the board is a major highlight. Even when the story those voices are telling is pretty dull. Of course, none of that changes that what you actually do in these locations is more often than not really boring, but at least the views are nice. Dark Alliance is designed for co-op play, but allows you to play alone as well. Don't do that. Please, just don't. While running through with a full stack of 4 players is a mostly unremarkable trek, going solo is a relentless nightmare in which all of Dark Alliance's shortcomings are magnified and given an iridescent glow. The synergy that can exist between a party is replaced with a wildly unbalanced experience as you try to use the narrow strengths and weaknesses of a single character to brute force your way through each level. The story suffers just as much, since your character is just monologuing to no one in particular.
More foes to fell.
All the monotony and blandness of the campaign still applies, but without anyone to suffer along with you, it's a lot harder to bear. Co-op play definitely helps improve things a bit because you complement one another's strengths and weaknesses and work your way through hordes of enemies. and bosses that are mostly just beefed up and repetitious versions of those same enemies. In moments, getting through a challenging area or a boss on a higher difficulty can be fairly satisfying, if for no other reason than that I was happy to be past it. Even if you can handle the unrelenting tedium of Dark Alliance, the avalanche of technical problems that come with it really hit where it hurts. And when I say there are a lot of bugs, I mean there are a lot of bugs. My party encountered everything from the familiar and frequent stuff like meddlesome rubber banding and frame rate dips, to run-ending bugs like your camera getting stuck in one direction so you can't turn your character around, or dropping dead while your character still has health left in their health bar. It's in rough shape. I badly wanted Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance to be an awesome co-op version of the pencil and paper tabletop RPGs I've loved for decades. But it just isn't. It's a bland, boring trek through repetitive encounters that brings nothing to the table that a dozen games haven't done better. It offers very few moments of genuine excitement, and it's filled with bugs and annoying design choices throughout. I can praise its faithful look and feel, which captures much of what makes the Forgotten Realms a great setting, but there's very little else to recommend about this unpolished mess of a hack-and-slash RPG. For more swords and/or sorcery with friends, check out our reviews of Chivalry 2 and the Elder Scrolls Online Blackwood, and for everything else, stick with IGN.